It's time for another gardening update. I'm just going to walk by the garden so you can get a look at everything real quick. We got about 2 inches of rain last night, and we still got a very light, almost a drizzle, but it could start raining harder at any time. As you can see, the garden's doing pretty well. I can even see a couple of blooms on the long beans. So we'll be getting some long beans setting on pretty soon. We just picked some bush beans back here on the red swans. Let me see if we can see a couple. Yeah, there's still a couple of small ones that you can see, I think. But they came on a lot earlier than the calemas. The calemas are just starting to make little tiny beans now. Let's get back here and look at this variegated corn. I think you can see it pretty well. It's just now starting to produce tassels. So it's going to be getting a show on the road pretty quick. Here's a closer look at some of the stuff in the grow bags, so you can see how they're doing. I stuck some flowers in with those carrots. Whenever I see an empty spot, I just stick something in it. There's some more carrots that are doing pretty well. I need to thin them out. The beets are ready to pull anytime, I think. And these Midwest pandemonium are starting to ripen. So maybe I'll get to try one of those soon. I expect those to be very hot. The peas will have to come out here pretty soon, in the next day or two. There's some more beets. Lots of peppers. And a few flowers stuck here and there. While I'm thinking about it, let's go down here and take a look at these candy sticks. I'm going to try to squeeze in a second crop of corn. We've got some corn coming up here. I'm going to thin it out pretty good. Over here we've got the melons on the cattle panel trellis. And right next to it we have, well, looks like we have a cucumber that's starting to sit on over here by the melons. It's a pretty good size, I think. It'll be ready to pick very soon. The tomatoes are all setting on fruit. I think you can see them here and there. My favorite over here is Rosella Purple. We've got a couple more of these over by the storm shelter. There's a Rosella Purple. And then right over here, next to it is another Rosella Purple. And while we're looking at tomatoes over here, this is the Shimo Furry. It's got tons of tomatoes on it. Not tons, but dozens. The Musabashju banana is probably about waist high by now, actually a little over waist high. We've got a few blackberries over there by the shed. She picked some yesterday. Those are really good. And I've got some late garlic over here that I haven't harvested. I'll probably harvest that in the next week or two, maybe. I'm not sure. It might be longer. Here's a look at our pom-pom, or one of our pom-pom peppers. It just got a cluster of leaves that turns into a cluster of peppers, and then it sends out little branches to make smaller clusters. And those are just now starting to set on a couple of peppers. Here's our chunky sweet. It's got quite a few peppers on it, and they're good size also. We've got a sunflower that's right next to all these peppers. It's starting to produce little flower buds now. We had one that was broken off yesterday when we had some really, really strong winds. There's a Chadwick cherry and another tomato next to it. That's supposed to be a dwarf Haley's rainbow potato leaf, but it's not variegated, so I'm not sure what it is. I don't know if it's some kind of cross or if they got the wrong seeds to me. But the tomatoes are doing really well. There's a couple of peanuts right there. And another one over there. Let's see if we can get a look at these tomatoes over here. This is my tomato cross. I've got 2 of them growing. Each of them have probably close to a dozen tomatoes on them. Out of all of our tomatoes, these plants are actually doing the best. They're F1 hybrid, so they've got that hybrid vigor going for them. I'm really looking forward to trying some of those and see how they taste. But they're doing really well. The Monte Gusto pole beans are taller than the fence now. And if we get a little closer, we can see that they're starting to set some little beans here and there. Nothing to get too excited about yet, but if you look at all the blooms that are on there, you can see it's going to be a prolific pole bean, like it was last time we grew it. There's that variegated basil that I've showed you a couple of times already. It's still looking really good and still growing. For those of you who are interested in the peppers, I did a video on just the peppers recently. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a link down below. The long beans are over the top of their 5-foot cage, and they're starting to get some blooms on them. The blooms are kind of pretty, but it'll be having some beans on here pretty soon. Right next to the long beans, we have some basil growing. Right there. And then right next to that, next to a cage, we have some Malabar spinach. It's not my favorite, but I like to grow lots of different things. I think it's probably good for your health to have a wide variety of things in your diet. And there's some more basil. I need to thin that out. And the okra in the middle of the row is starting to grow well. Over here I've stuck I transplanted that little okra. It's not doing too well. But I had an eggplant over here, and that eggplant just disappeared one day. It was there one day and gone the next, and it wasn't pulled up, and it wasn't dug up. So I think it was a gopher that pulled it down into its hole. This is kind of an interesting pepper. It's got a very similar phenotype to the pom-poms, except it has different peppers that produced it. So you can get to the same phenotype several different ways, more than likely. We've got lots of little cherry tomatoes on this sun gold plant. And we actually had our first ripe ones, just backed up into the wind chime. But we had our first ripe one a couple of days ago. We didn't get to eat the very first one. It was eaten by a box turtle. But we'll get plenty off of this plant later on. I had a few micro tomatoes left over, so I stuck them over here by the strawberries. I have dark stripe micro and ink spot. And here's an ink spot with some little tomatoes on it. We also have some orange hat over here on the other side. Let me see if I can get you a look at those. You can see they're very small plants and very prolific. Lots of little tomatoes. The orange hats, I'm not a fan of cherry tomatoes except for the sun gold anyway. But the orange hats are just so easy to grow that I grow them every once in a while just because they're fun to grow. And Mrs. Midwest Gardener likes them, so you can't beat that. The sweet potatoes in the straw bale are doing pretty well, except for in the middle of the bale, they're not growing as well as on the ends. I'm not sure exactly why that is, but Hopefully those ones in the middle will catch up. I put 4 in the bale this time just to see how that would do. That's all I have to show you this week. I better get indoors before it starts raining again. If you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.